This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello everyone, and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast. However, we are coming back from 3 million years into deep space, and we're going back to the village of Workshop. We are going back to the village of Workshop for this episode 2 of Maid Marian and her merry men, and as I am joined by my fellow cohort, Colin Jackson Brown. Hello, Colin.
Evening. How you doing?
Not too bad yourself?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
Looking forward to talking about another episode of Maid Marian and her merry men, which, as I mentioned last time, is the second greatest kids' TV programme of all time.
Absolutely. Right then, so let's get straight into it. This is Series 1, Episode 2, Robert the Incredible Chicken, which is a great title.
It's fantastic. You cannot argue with that kind of title, can you?
Yeah. You don't know where it comes from, and then when it eventually is revealed where it's come from, it's never really explained why, which is one of my favourite things in this episode. It was broadcast on 23rd of November 1989, and we pick up almost exactly where we left off as we go through the dungeons of Nottingham Castle as a ragga beat kicks in, and Barrington starts telling us of the sound coming from deep within the castle. The sound wakes up Gary and Graham, and they investigate to find King John and the sheriff are still hanging up in the torture chamber, being tickled by the feather duster at their bare feet. I quite like that this picked up like what felt like moments after the first episode.
Yeah, it's a direct continuation of the previous episode. And what I also liked is the fact that Gary and Graham are falling over laughing, finding it absolutely hilarious that the sheriff and King John are being tortured.
As Barrington is singing during this, he asks who could have possibly done this to the king and the sheriff. And again, as we had in the previous episode, via 90s special effects, Marian appears on the screen and says that it was her and her merry men title.
Yes.
So yeah, I can't remember if this is something that goes through every episode of the first series where Marian turns up in a sort of...
No, I think it's only these first two.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
This gives me the impression that these two were filmed back to back or at the same time, with the idea of it being a pilot, and that pilot got chopped into 2 episodes.
Quite possibly, although the first series is different to the other 3 series in the fact that it does have much more of a linear story arc, and it is adapting, various bits of the actual original Robin Hood stories.
Yeah. And I know that we go deep into sort of parody territory as the series goes on, especially with a certain game show that happens in I think next series. I don't think it's this series. Yes. So we then go to the forest where Marian is trying to train the merry men to become revolutionary freedom fighters. However, it's not going well as they can't really do a scary rah. And Ron, in what seems to be his running gag throughout the series, doesn't face the right way when they leap into battle.
And it's such a stupid joke, but it's so funny. I love it.
Yeah, it's the thing that gets me is that she asks him to turn around every time, but she says, please. Yeah. She never gets really annoyed about it because he does it every single time.
It's very much a sort of teacher kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way she's like, Ron, face the front.
Yeah. I think they're very big on the rules of 3 with Ron when Ron does something. Like in the previous episode, they run into him 3 times. In this one, I think he does the facing the wrong way the 3 times.
Yes.
And yeah, it's very good. I think the third one where she says, come on, Ron, focus. It was like, we talked about this. Ron can't face the right way. Robin is scared and wants to run away and go home.
Yeah, scared of the war cry that the other merry men have done, which is rah.
It was a yay, wasn't it? It was like a yay.
Yeah.
Which, if a group of people jumped out and yelled yay at me, I'd be like, is it my birthday? Or is something going on? I wouldn't be particularly terrified. Robin wants to go home. Marian kind of re-establishes what's going on by reminding him King John is looking for him, and especially him, because he thinks that Robin is the leader, and he hasn't really got much of a choice but to stay with the Merry Men, which I thought was a bit harsh. It was a bit like, you can't go home, you haven't got a choice. And part of me was like, a bit of this is Marian's fault.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I absolutely love there's so many really good sort of background things happening.
Yes.
Particularly in this episode.
Yeah. So we do get the first part of that background stuff, which is as Marian's telling Robin about how his destiny is now with the Merry Men, we see that the other three are doing weightlifting with what looks like tree branches tied to sacks of something.
Yeah.
Barrington can't lift it. Ron lifts the same one with one hand, and Rabies picks his up and breaks it because they just fall off the edge.
Yeah.
It's just some good little... Because when you've got this ensemble, you need them to do something.
Yeah.
And it kind of sets them up as Ron's the actual powerhouse. Rabies isn't too smart, and John Jules is a talker, not a fighter.
Well, I think Rabies is technically the strongest.
Yeah.
But Ron has got the skill as well as the strength. And the aggression.
Yes. If Rabies had Ron's skill and aggression, he'd be the most dangerous person on the planet.
Yes.
In the same way, Barrington's got the sort of street smarts and the ability to talk that the other two haven't. So together, they make a very good team.
Yeah, definitely.
Ron is not only incredibly strong, he knows karate. I don't think it was that well known in the 1700s, but Ron knows it.
Yeah, but I'm fairly certain in later series there are like wooden satellite dishes on some of the buildings, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Ron knows karate and starts chopping wood with karate chops. I think in the 90s was the thing that like people would go on like Blue Peter and do. So that's one of those things that appeals to what you were seeing at the time. I did martial arts for a good few years. I used to do it with the blocks that they would slide together. I only did it properly a few times, and I probably damaged my arm to the point that I've still got problems with it today.
Right.
Than actually doing it properly, because I was a weak child. So Marian's still giving a speech to Robin while supporting Ron every time he manages to chop a log in half, which I thought was quite nice. She's a very supportive leader.
Yes. And then in the background, you've got Rabies trying to climb a rope.
Yes.
And eventually pulling a tree branch down onto his head.
I do like, because he does it, he does it in threes. He grabs the rope and the rope just snaps in his hand.
Jumps up, grabs it again.
Snaps in his hand, and then he finally jumps and grabs it, and he gets hit with the branch, which he doesn't really sell. He sort of hits him. He's like, oh. He's more annoyed than anything else.
Yeah.
There's a lovely little touch where Marian's saying, like, we need to go through the trees like the wind, be agile like the deer, and Rabies just barges straight into her.
Yeah.
But he does turn around and go, sorry, which I thought was a sweet little moment. Segment ends by Marian is leaning on one of the logs as Ron's about to chop it, and he accidentally chops Marian's hand as well. This made me laugh because, in theory, if he's chopping the wood in half, he should chop her fingers off.
Or at least severely damage some bones.
Yeah, but Marian walks it off, which is showing how tough Marian is.
Yeah.
She just kind of wanders off. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the forest, there is the sheriff, Gary and Graham, who are sneaking about trying to find Robin Hood. Graham accidentally ladders his tights with his sword because they are basically like walking like ducks almost. They're sort of squatted down and sneaking along that way, which they can't do with big, massive swords.
Well, I mean, they're searching for Robin, but at the same time, they're terrified of him.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, they think that he is this big badass that he absolutely is not.
they find a broken sapling, which leads to the joke that made me laugh at. Well, the section that made me laugh out loud, which was the sheriff pointing at something and saying, "What's that there? Your finger." No, what's on the end of that? Your fingernail.
Your fingernail. Yes.
Tony Robinson doesn't even turn to face them. He just keeps staring at what he's doing, still pointing and says, "Yes, thank you for that. And now we're going to move on from anatomy to nature. What am I pointing at?" It's very Blackadder. It gives you the impression that if they really wanted to, Tony Robinson could have played Blackadder.
Yeah. And a lot of this is him showing that, and I think that's deliberate. It's like, look, I could have done that. And he does absolutely fine with it. But again, like I said last episode, it still works really well in its own right.
Yes, definitely. Something as well that's worth noting is these early ones, these early episodes, not the whole series, were script edited by Richard Curtis.
Yes, who also wrote some of Blackadder's stuff.
Yeah, uncredited as well.
Yeah.
Which you get the feeling that was Tony Robinson going around and them having a glass of whiskey or something going, "Look, I've got this thing. Can you just read it for me?" So yes, after they discover this broken sapling, which they take as a clue that someone somewhere has broken that sapling, or as Gary believes, hurt it, and comes back after they walk out of shot to go, "Don't worry, you'll get better soon." Showing Gary to be the more compassionate of everybody so far on the baddie side.
Yeah.
Back at the camp, Marian is trying to teach everyone archery, which leads to probably the best Barrington moment in the episode of that they're trying to do. This is before Prince of Thieves, but I'm sure it's in Robin Hood lore anyway. Can you split a stick with an arrow?
Yeah.
Barrington says he can, and then proceeds to shoot it from point blank range.
Yeah, which she didn't say it had to be far away. But yeah, that is. I think the whole arrow splitting another arrow is part of the original Robin Hood.
Yeah, it's made well, it's famous anyway, but it's made like worldwide famous by the point of view arrow shot in Prince of Thieves,
or the one in Men in Tights where it keeps going round all the time.
Yes, I watched Prince of Thieves. I legitimately do love Prince of Thieves. It's terrible in a lot of places, but it's actually really good in a lot of other places.
I don't think I've seen it for probably 25 years, but when I was a kid, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Me and my sister at the time, in the early 90s when that came out, were obsessed with Robin Hood.
Yeah.
And we used to, when that Bryan Adams song was at number 1 for 4 fucking months, we used to stand there with our bows and arrows that we'd got from the Tales of Robin Hood in Nottingham and stuff like that.
I've got an audio adventures thing of the Robin Hood tales. It's a full cast production. I was like, oh, that's new. And you kind of have to get a decent Robin Hood. If you know the Merry Men, you can almost not get anybody, but it's very there. But for Robin Hood, they've got Gwilym Lee, who was in Midsummer Murders for a bit, but he was he was Brian May in Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right. Okay.
And he's Robin Hood, and I've listened to a bit of it so far, and he does a really good job. Because I used to have the books of the stories of Robin Hood, and I was like, I haven't checked up on those in years. I'll see if there's an audio sort of thing, cast adventure, and I found this one, and it's good. I went on a tangent there, but I am going to get the special edition Blu-ray of Prince of Thieves because it's got the commentary on it from Costner and Kevin Reynolds, the director.
I need to rewatch it at some point just so I can look for Howard Lewis in it.
Yeah, watch the director's cut because there is quite a bit more in it, including "Fuck Me, They Made It."
Yeah,
which I never knew about until I was an adult. So yes, Marian's back at the Arch trying to teach archery. Barrington shoots the stick at point blank range. However, Marian wants him to fire it from over there. Robin's up next, and Marian starts giving him the instructions, which he's kind of following. Oh, go on.
Just before he follows the instructions, there is my favourite moment of this episode, though.
Go on.
Because it's Marian says, "You're up next, Robin." And Robin says, "No, sorry, can't." To which Marian says, "No such word as can't." And Rabies replies, Yes, there is. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's true.
Yeah.
There is. Yeah, so Robin steps up, but he follows the instructions. I think it's something that people could identify as is he follows them as he hears them, which is put it to your ear and have it adjacent to your right ear. And if he was pointing the bow and arrow the right way, he'd get it, but he's pointing it upwards.
Yes.
And he ends up shooting a stray arrow into the air, basically.
Well, he just thinks it's disappeared.
Yes.
It's gone.
Yeah, he reveals later in the episode that the reason he fired it was because he was looking at his hand to make sure the arrow was in it, and he let go. We hear almost the Wilhelm scream from a distance that it's hit something.
Possibly a very noisy squirrel.
Yes.
Or no, it's the cry of a human being who's just received a very serious injury.
Yes, Marian lays it on that he's hurt somebody and he needs to go and apologise. So Robin dashes off into the woods to see what it is or who it is that he's hit. And it turns out it's the sheriff who believes, and bless him, they actually made Tony Robinson look sort of ashen and pale for this bit. He thinks he's dying because he's been hit by an arrow. And we can't see the arrow because of the camera shot. So it's perfectly feasible he has been hit in like the chest. He's sliding down a tree with Gary and Graham by his side, and he asks them if he's been
a good master.
And they said no. And then he said, fine, have I been a fair one? It's like, no. We were even talking about last night how not fair you've been. Which I think shows real friendship.
Yeah, but he gets very offended and jumps up and starts ranting against it, at which point realising that he's actually alive.
Yeah, and he's so happy when he realises he's alive. He does a little dance.
Yeah.
A glorious bit of work from Tony Robinson. He's so happy. He even screams like, I'm alive. Very much like Rimmer does when he thinks he's alive at the end of Time Slides. He's alive, and when he asks where the arrow is, it's in his hat, which is in the tree, which Gary appears to have known the entire time, and they've just not told him.
Well, I think Gary and Graham are that stupid that they probably thought he was dying, even though it had just hit his hat.
The sheriff's very not happy about his hat. Because it was a gift from, I believe he says his Aunt Miriam or Aunt Marjorie, one of the two. Marjorie. And so he shouts out into the forest, very like a teacher. Who was that? Come on out. If you don't, you're all going to have to stay behind until somebody owns up to it. To which Robin does come out going, sorry, sir, me, sir. Which very much shows Robin's personality as a sort of pampered schoolboy.
Yeah.
And Tony Roberts, I mean, again, because it's a show for kids, everybody's heard that if somebody doesn't own up to it, we'll stay behind until somebody does.
Yeah, the whole class will stay behind.
So, yeah, Robin comes out and is to say sorry, and then the sheriff tells him to bend over, which was like, oh, is he going to, like, hit him with... This, again, almost getting back into the mindset of being a kid. It was like, oh, he's going to hit him with his shoe or a cane or something.
Yeah.
No, he's going to chop his head off.
So, yeah, bend over, right, cut his head off.
Yeah.
I haven't got any scissors.
But again, like we talked about the last one, it's like, oh, my mind, thinking it's a kid's show, my mind went to, oh, he's going to hit him with a cane or something. No, head off. So, yeah, Gary realises he can cut his head off with a sword. And, however, they are stopped by Marian in what I thought was a really well done hero shot of Marian standing there with the bow and arrow pointing at them.
And the way the other merry men then sort of come out of the woods with them all aiming the bow.
It was like they
well.
were in a proper Robin Hood film at that point, at that moment. But in my mind, all I was thinking, Ron's facing the wrong way, obviously. But in my mind, I was thinking, the cool bit about that is they're all pointing their arrows at them and only one of them really knows how to fire. So it looks.
And at this point, we don't know that she does.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, during this, Marian says Robin's name, and the sheriff realizes he's Robin Hood, which leads him to surrender immediately.
Yep.
Going into that theme of Robin's legend is much more than the man himself. Yes, he drops to his knees and says he will give him everything. Actually, he can't, because he's not got his wallet on him at the moment. But he doesn't say it in like a snivelly way. He genuinely comes across like, I have actually forgotten my wallet.
But Gary and Graham have got theirs. It's fine.
Yes, he tells Gary and Graham to give them everything he's got. Gary's got his purse, which he's very hesitant to give up, saying it's stuck together with glue. And on further pressing, it reveals that he hasn't got any money, but there is Herman. Now, who's Herman, Colin?
Herman is a little metal sausage dog that he's got that goes on a little bit of elastic so he can bounce up and down.
Yeah. And he's not only metal, he's silver.
Yeah.
So he's made to give Herman to Robin, who's very impressed by Herman, it has to be said.
He also gives him the purse because that's Herman's little house.
Yes. However, they all run away, and then Gary comes back to say goodbye to Herman, which I thought was very sweet. And then Robin gives him Herman back, going, he'll only pine for you anyway because you're not there. Which is the nicest thing Robin does in both of these episodes so far.
Yeah.
And then there's a very good point, because Marian's furious that he just threw away their first bit of
loot.
And she says, what kind of bandit does that? And Robin goes, a kind one? Which was actually, it was like, yeah, actually. You can tell, yeah, that guy's a palace guard, but he's an idiot. And this is all he's got. Oh, no, he has got a wife, because he said it was, they were going to... He was going to... No, it was his mum. He was going to cook for his mum earlier on, and they were going to be late.
And she'll be waiting for him. She won't start eating without him.
Yeah.
So he's got to be home in time.
Yeah. So, yeah, Gary's overjoyed at getting Herman back, and he says thank you and runs away. Barrington immediately bursts into song about what is the sheriff going to say to King John. Which I thought was so abrupt, but then it works so well because at any musical, they just burst into song. And I forgot that there was literally 2 songs, sometimes more, every episode.
Yeah.
It's normally John Jules.
Yeah, I think later on you used to get Robin singing a fair bit because Adam/Wayne Morris is quite a good singer as well.
I looked into it. Some of the actors, either they dubbed themselves or they're dubbed by other people. I think there's one episode, it might be the Christmas special, where someone's singing and it's kind of, for some reason there's text on the screen and they point out that that's not his voice, and the person whose voice it is the guitarist sitting next to him.
Yeah.
Who's in the episode. But yeah, it's very blatantly John Jules doing his bits.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it cuts to the sheriff trying to explain to King John why he ran away and didn't bring back Robin Hood. And to hear it, he's outnumbered by 20 to 30 people. He did fight loads of them, though. Apparently there was bits flying everywhere as he hacked and slashed with his sword.
Yeah.
But it was too much, and he was pinned to a tree by Robin Hood, although he did rip the tree out by its roots to continue fighting before escaping.
Yeah.
King John looks thoroughly unimpressed by all of this, but you can't tell if he believes him or not. I'd like to believe him.
Yeah.
This, however, gives him an idea, and he orders the sheriff to make 3,000 posters by St. Elvis's Day. Now, I didn't look it up if St. Elvis's Day is a thing.
I did.
Did you? Is it?
I looked it up. Yeah. So, I was talking last week about how the fact that the time is completely all over the place.
Yes.
So, this should only be a day or 2 after the start of the first episode.
Yes.
By this point, where Barrington gets arrested for having rats that are a day out of date, and it's either June or July is the date.
Yeah.
But St. Elvis's Day is the 12th of September.
Ah.
So I was thinking, St. Elvis, That's obviously, Elvis Presley.
Yes.
They're obviously, it's a made-up thing. They're taking the mickey. No, St. Elvis is the anglicised name of St. Alva, who is an Irish patron saint. It was the first bishop of Emly in Munster in Ireland. 12th of September is his feast day.
Oh, excellent. I just thought they'd done it for a funny pun.
Absolutely. Yeah. But then, Tony Robinson is a history geek.
True.
And he does put little things like that. There's another one later on.
Yeah. I thought it was in the sort of 15th of Geldof kind of realm.
Yeah.
So yes, he's got to make 3,000 posters by St. Elvis Day, which is tomorrow.
Yeah.
And he's got to do them by hand. Now, I'm sure that King John says you best get a pen, some ink, and a big fella. I'm sure he says, and a big fella, and get on with it. But the sheriff's just doing it by himself when we see it. But we see that he is like blitzing through them.
Perhaps he's doing it word by word, like when we were talking about lines.
They love doing lines for the in the olden days. It turns out the posters are for the world's first World Archery Championship, first round, first leg, which is going to take place in Worksop. The prize is a silver arrow in an attractive mahogany veneer setting, which won me over. I don't know about you. However, the posters state that Robin Hood won't turn up as he's rubbish.
Yeah.
The merry men see this.
It's Robin that's reading this to us.
Yes, it is. And his feelings are hurt because he believes he is the world's greatest archer because he shot the sheriff in the hat.
But he didn't shoot the deputy.
No, he didn't. Robin announces he's going. However, Marian says, it's a trap. Do you not realise it's a trap?
Yes, it's an incredibly obvious trap. Yeah. You absolute idiot.
Yeah. Robin says he's still going because he's always wanted to go and win a silver arrow in an attractive mahogany veneer setting.
Which is a very specific ambition.
Absolutely. Marian forbids him to go. Robin going, who's the leader of this gang? I am. They walk off. However, Robin has a plan.
Yes.
Which shows that he's not dumb. He's just cowardly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would suggest that maybe he is when we find out what the plan is later.
True. The event is here, brought to you by Perkins and Warbeck's, makers of torture equipment.
Yeah, so that little opening monologue is beautiful. King John is sort of introducing everything to the crowd, and he says, and I'd also like to say a big thank you to the sponsors of today's event, Perkin Warbeck's, makers of high-class torture equipment to the royal family who've donated this marvellous prize. It's so beautifully written, and I was thinking, Perkins Warbeck, that's specific. That's not a name you just make up. So I looked it up.
Nice.
Perkin Warbeck was a pretender to the English throne in the late 1490s. So hundreds of years after this is set. He basically turned up claiming to be Richard of Shrewsbury, who was one of, the princes in the tower?
Yeah.
That basically disappeared, allowing Richard III to become king. He basically turned up saying, yeah, I'm one of them, I've grown up.
All right.
The true king. Didn't work. They works out that he wasn't who they were, mainly because Richard III knew because he'd sealed them in a fucking tower.
Yeah.
And had him executed. But yeah, King John also refers to Workshop as a sunshine paradise.
Which, if you've been to Workshop, is completely true. Oh, yeah. I had to have an umbrella because of how much sun was coming down last time I worked at Workshop. Yes. So the king goes through the contestants. We only meet a couple of them. We meet Eric the Newt Teasel from Epping Forest. Then the most obvious reference you're ever going to get, which is Clough from Nottingham Forest.
Yes. Even I recognise that is a football reference.
Yeah. I almost expected him to do an impression of Brian Clough when he spoke. He didn't, bless him, but I kind of almost expected it.
I wouldn't have known if he did.
No.
But then you've got my other absolute favourite bit in this episode, where King John has just spoken to the first two contestants and then says to the sheriff, "He's here somewhere, I know it, no doubt brilliantly disguised in order to fool us." And then cuts to him talking to the next contestant, which is Robin, dressed as a chicken.
Yep. Dressed as a giant chicken, which isn't really explained. Why? I think I'm sure somebody calls him that. Or no, they call him
in
it
a
later.
bit.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason that he dresses as one is that's what the Fox version of Robin Hood in the Disney thing dresses as a chicken. That's where they've got that bit from.
Yeah.
For the archery competition.
Talking about things going on in the background, sometimes in scenes later on in this bit, we will notice that Robin actually starts taking the mannerisms of a chicken on.
Yes, he's flapping his wings. It's amazing.
Flaps and clucks sometimes. He announces himself as Robin of Sherwood Forest. The king thinks nothing of it and then double takes and comes back. And Robin corrects himself that he is Robert, the Incredible Chicken. Is that straight out of the Disney Robin Hood, or is that a fresh line?
I think that's a fresh line. Yeah.
The king is just flustered by this point as he can't find Robin Hood, just these first two and this fabulous chicken chap. The merry men arrive at the village. Marian's furious at Robin running off, especially as it was during the washing up. She sets little Ron searching houses, which is my favourite little joke because they actually established it in the first episode, which is Ron runs through doors.
Oh, no, he walks into doors and runs through the walls.
That's it.
To get out the other side, he just goes straight through the wall.
Yeah, he runs through the door to the torture chamber in episode 1.
Yeah.
And in this one, he goes through the doors and then runs out through walls of the houses he's searching, saying there's nobody in there.
And you've also there's a bit where they send Rabies to look, and he just lifts the roof up to look inside.
Exactly, the sort of gentle giant, so strong joke. They do, however, while they don't find anything in their houses, they spot Gary and Graham fast asleep in front of a conveniently placed dung cart.
Yes, cart full of manure.
Yes, and they're asleep on the floor.
Chekhov's manure,
yes.
I would like to call it.
Yes, they are fast asleep, which for the Royal Guard is very, very impressive. They look kind of sweet because they're properly like dreaming away. So the competition starts. King John reveals that the target, and I love this joke, is a giant dartboard.
Yes.
And it does make me think, why isn't that a sport?
Yeah.
Why isn't archery darts a sport? Yeah.
Darchery.
Oh, yes. Yes,
yeah,
Colin.
darchery. Definitely.
Down to the patent office with that one.
Have you ever done archery?
Not for a long time.
Last time I did it was at the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
And I misjudged it and managed to get the bowstring went all the way down my arm, and I had a massive bruise all along my arm for the rest of my honeymoon while I was there.
Yeah.
Didn't actually hurt that much.
No.
It was just completely fucking purple.
Mrs. had to explain a lot to everyone when you came back, did she?
Yeah.
No, the last time I did it, I think, was like at a village fair.
Right.
Which was very Midsummer Murders for me. But I actually remember not being bad, but this is before I needed glasses and my eyesight going. I did once think about buying a home set to just mess about with in the garden.
Yep.
Because they're not that expensive.
So not long after this was on the TV, I was in Scouts.
Yes.
And sort of the scout troop I was in used to get told off fairly regularly by the district for not doing proper knots and badges and that kind of thing, because every other week we would do either shooting or archery. and I was always crap at archery. I wasn't that bad at shooting. I have this weird thing where I can, if I close one of my eyes, the other one part closes.
Yeah.
So what I need is like a patch or something over my eye. We went to a shooting range in Poland for my co-host on We Dig Music and Free with this month's issue, Ian, for his stag do a few years ago. It was amazing. You go into this shooting range and they've got a gun menu. So it's like, AK-47, MP5, stuff like that, various different guns. I had an Uzi. Uzis are shit.
Yes.
They're designed for fucking spraying into a room without, you can't aim the bloody things at all. But yeah, it was hilarious because I could not aim properly at all because I've got a lot worse since I was in the Scouts.
Yeah.
And could not properly close just one eye. But yeah, we at the Scouts we used to, because we did it so often, we got bored of shooting at paper targets.
Yeah.
So we used to use the Cubs and the Beavers. No, no, we used to basically bring in our old toys, and we'd have a load of dinosaurs and toy cars set up, and we'd be shooting the crap out of them, which was fun.
I remember once being me and a few of my mates, we used to go to Skegness in the winter because it was cheaper, and we weren't interested in rides. We'd just go like to hit the bars and stuff and hit the arcades because nobody was there apart from the locals, and they hate you because they have to stay open. But we went into an arcade and they had the pump shotgun game, and it was a very odd moment where I did it once and I wasn't very good, and my mate laughed at me. So I put another coin in and then proceeded to almost like my sleeper training had awoken and shot everything out of the sky like first time all the way through and won. And my mate looked at me like, "You're all right." It was just that kind of that was spooky. Yeah, I've never been able to do anything like that since. So if you ever want me to be a dead-on assassin, let me have a go first and then mock me for it. And then I'll be the greatest shot you've ever seen.
Noted.
Yes. So yes, the getting back to it, the target's a giant dartboard. As Teasel, the first participant, steps up, the sheriff provides commentary, and this is Tony Robinson just bang on getting the vibe of darts commentary spot on.
Yeah,
he's not even doing it as a baddie. He's just playing it straight as a commentator.
Yeah,
and it's really good. And we even get the in-shot box in the corner of the screen, seeing what Teasel hits with the bow and arrow.
And you just after Teasel's finished, you've got an announcement for the next archer from the village of Ambridge. And it just fades out.
Yeah.
Ambridge being the village that The Archers is set in.
Oh, right. I didn't realise that. Okay.
Yep.
So Teasel scores 36. The Merry Men find Gladys. Well, Barrington finds Gladys first, and then the others join in. Ask if they've seen Robin. She's no idea who they're talking about because... They try and remind her of him, saying he's the tall one who thinks he's so brave, but he's really an incredible chicken. And the words "incredible chicken" trigger Gladys as to something she's seen that day, because she has seen an incredible chicken, and he's over there doing the arts contest, the archery contest. Just again tying into the theory that Gladys is constantly on the weed. So we go back to the contest, and Robin's interviewed by the sheriff about how he's feeling before he takes his shot. And again, it is done dead straight as a sports interview, with Wayne Morris doing it like, "Oh, I'm feeling okay. So I'm taking every arrow as it comes." Basically, any Premier League midfielder being interviewed all through the 90s. The only thing he didn't say is, "I'm happy with the points."
You've also got the villagers in the background who are all sort of leaning to get into shot.
Yes, and waving.
Like, sort of hello mum kind of thing.
And they never do a thing of like what's television or reveal that. It's just done completely straight, and then he goes to take a shot. The high score to beat is 46, which was set by Mad Clem, the totally useless of Brixton Forest, who we don't meet.
Yes. Which I think's a massive shame.
Yeah.
I want to meet Mad Clem. I did look up to see if there was any reference to somebody from Brixton called Clem.
Yeah.
But couldn't find anything of use. Yeah. But I'm sure it's a reference to something.
Yeah. So Robin steps up and starts following the instructions as he did before, which leads to him again pointing his bow and arrow in the air and letting go, essentially.
Yes.
However, he is remarkably efficient. The first arrow hits Graham in the helmet and then knocks
on his head.
On his head.
Yeah, metal.
And bounces off and tips over the dung over him and Gary.
Chekhov's dung.
Gary looking like it knocks him out immediately. He sort of wakes up, gets hit by the dung, and then kind of flops back into an unconscious position.
Yeah.
The second arrow hits the tarp above King John and brings it all crashing down on him. And the third one hits the sign for the sponsors, which swings and hits the sheriff directly in the head, knocking him out into the mud. And the crowd go wild.
A big wooden stick frame on it, so it's not just like a cloth banner.
It's a proper crossbeam hitting him in the head. The crowd go crazy for this. King John has him arrested. This is where Robin flaps his wings when they grab either side of him and kind of clucks a bit. They order him to be sent to the dungeon. However, Marian arrives, stating that the contest isn't over because she hasn't taken part. King John is quite sexist towards her.
Yes, tells her to get back in the kitchen.
Yeah, dismissing her as a girl, causing Marian in a rage to hit 180, which is punctuated by Kelly Bright's character, 60, 120, one. And because she has got a very Cockney accent when she does the 180. I can't do the voice, but she does do it in the full Cockney accent, and it's probably the most lines she gets in the whole of the series.
I did think that, yes. Yeah. I normally she's sort of a background character. She's like a prominent background character, but doesn't get to talk that often, I don't think.
She does have a name, but I can't remember what it is right now.
No, she doesn't.
Doesn't she?
No, she's just credited as little girl, and she's only in the first series.
Right.
There's a replacement in the second series that does have a name, which is a different actress.
Well, Kelly Bright went to do 2 more series of Teabag after this.
Yeah.
So I didn't realise there was that many series of Teabag. They're on YouTube.
It did seem to be on a lot when I was a kid. I was never a massive fan of Teabag.
After hitting 180, King John believes Marian is Robin in disguise.
Yes.
And tries to attack her now that she's got no arrows. But Marian grabs the silver arrow in a beautiful mahogany veneer and holds it up to the king with the merry men surrounding everybody else. So they come out of the crowd and everybody's surrounded. Again, no one's actually fired an arrow yet apart from Marian and Robin badly. She demands that they release that chicken immediately, and they escape back into the forest as the peasants cheer. So they've got some loot, which is the bright silver arrow, and they've managed to rescue Robin from being put in the torture chamber while dressed as a giant chicken.
Indeed.
So the sheriff, who's been in the mud for a while now, wakes up and asks who hit him, and again, perpetuating the myth of Robin Hood, Gary and Graham tell him it was Robin Hood who did it, because he did do it. He did hit the sign that hit him in the head.
Yeah.
This is the bit that was kind of confusing, and it made me wonder if something had been cut out a bit. The sheriff orders them to find them and give it to him.
I don't think it is anything cut out. I think it's just like, give it to him as in kick the shit out of him. basically.
They sort of said he asked for it, so give it to him.
Yeah, you're asking for it.
Oh, yeah, right, he's asking for it. Right, okay. Gary and Graham do seem to take a moment to understand. The Merry Men celebrate and announce that they got away court-free, only to be immediately caught by Gary and Graham.
Yes.
Literally, they're behind a tree behind them. Gary and Graham, secretly really good at their job.
Debatable, but yeah.
Elements of it.
Yes.
They're really good at the hunting and tracking when they've not got the sheriff. Gary says he's going to give it to him, and he gives him Herman, including Herman's bag home that's got like a little bit, it's got his water bowl in it, and loads of other things. And he's given it to him happily because the sheriff told him to give it to him, which is really sweet.
I think Herman will do well with them.
Yes. He even gets the elastic band that makes him bounce up and down. So now they've got the original bit of loot that they wanted and the silver arrow. Gary and Graham wish them a happy St. Elvis Day and then leave and just go back to the sheriff, where presumably they're going to get a proper kick-in. Robin's overjoyed by this, and he's really grateful to the sheriff for getting them to give him Herman, but he can't seem to find the word to describe him, to which Marian says, "Don't ask." Song. Yeah, that was season 1, episode 2. I think this was still very strong. Like I say, I believe it was probably shot at the same time as the first one, but very strong episode with a good plot and references that not only the kids will get, but the adults will get as well. What was your feeling?
So I don't think it's as good as the first episode, but it's still brilliant. You know, it's still better than most other TV shows, let alone kids TV shows. Still absolutely love it. It's great. Elodie enjoyed it as well, as we'll hear in a minute. I think I see it more of like a sort of balance of power kind of episode, where it's not as important, but it's still setting up the lore to continue.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's like Colin says, it doesn't really matter what my opinion is or what Colin's opinion is, but we bow down to a higher power, and that is Colin's 7-year-old daughter, Elodie. So let's find out what she thought of this episode right now.
Right, so Elodie's back with us again for another episode. In case you didn't listen to the previous one, this is my 7-year-old daughter, so we can get a bit of 21st century 7-year-old perspective on Maid Marian and her Merry Men, because she's the same age now as I was when I first used to watch it. Elodie, Robert the Incredible Chicken, what did you think of that episode?
It was pretty funny. I liked it when Maid Marian, on the first episode and the second episode, there's little songs at the start, and she's like, "I think he's talking about me," stuff like that.
Where she appears in Barrington's song at the start.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it did it last week as well as this one. I don't think she does it in the other ones.
Yeah, no, I
much.
don't. I was just going to say that because I forgot to say in the last episode. Yeah.
What do you think was the funniest bit of Robert the Incredible Chicken?
I think when one of the knights...
Gary and Graham.
Yeah, one of Gary and Graham. I forgot which one it was. I think it was Graham. I don't know.
I get them mixed up, and I've been watching it for 35 years, something like that.
Yeah, I liked it when he was like, "Hello, here's a little sausage dog with a little elastic band that he bounces up and down on."
Yep.
Yeah, and my purse is his little house, so I'm going to give you that as well.
Cool. So we talked a little bit about little Ron last time and about Marian. What do you think about Rabies?
Weird.
I like Rabies. He's funny.
Yeah.
He's a nice character. He's always really, really happy to help people. He's just not very clever, is he?
Yeah, it's like, what's it? Like that. I was like, what? What's it?
Brilliant. Right, okay. Do you think...
Yeah.
What of the episodes we've watched so far, so How the Band Got Together and Robert the Incredible Chicken, which one of those two is your favourite of the two episodes?
probably how the band got together.
I agree. I think that one's a slightly better episode.
Yeah, because, like, Robin, why does he choose for his costume to be a chicken costume? Nobody, apart from King John, because he's dumb, would believe that he was actually a chicken.
That is true. That is true. Although, as we know from watching Maid Marian and Our Merry Men, not many of the people are,
Very clever.
There are later episodes where people are definitely very easily fooled by very simple disguises, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like just a fake beard or something like that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Elodie. We'll talk to you next episode.
Yeah.
And there you have it.
There we go.
So, all that's left to say is, well, we're not going to do the where you can find it on the internet because we do that every episode. But I'm going to recommend a kids show for people to watch. I'm going to recommend Runaway Bay, which does have a link because John Jules is in a couple of episodes of it.
Right.
Which was on Children's ITV, and it was a drama with a bunch of kids living on like a Sandals-like resort. Solving crime, even though they were way too young to be solving the kinds of crime that they were doing.
So it was like a proto Death in Paradise then?
Yes.
By the sounds of it.
Daddy John Jules will try and find jobs that involve him going to luxurious locations.
Okay. I'm going to go for, trying to think whether to go more contemporary or old. I'm going to go old school. Because I've mentioned that twice that this is the second best kids' TV program of all time. My favourite absolute kids' TV program of all time is Dark Season. Russell T Davies wrote and directed it well before he did Doctor Who and that kind of thing. Kate Winslet in her first ever role. Never gets mentioned though, but it's absolutely fantastic. Really, really sort of dark kid sci-fi. And definitely worth tracking down.
Yeah, I didn't know about it until Mark mentioned it once on Right in the Childhood about it. And I was like, oh, that rings a bell, but I couldn't remember it. But yeah, I believe it's on YouTube, as everything is. So yes, take a look on YouTube. Look for Dark Season. There's another series he did afterwards.
Century Falls?
That's it, which is like the spiritual successor kind of to Dark Season. Well, that's all of that. We will be back for episode 3 next time. So all that's left to say is, and remember, Uzis are shit.
It's true, they are.